Carter. It's a pleasure to have you here. I appreciate your willingness to be considered for this position. Appreciated the visit we had in my office the other day, and you've certainly proven yourself as someone who knows a lot about the Department of Defense, having served at its highest levels as Deputy Secretary in the past. I want to talk about a few things. First, let's talk about the F-35 for a minute. The F-35 is an amazing system with units at Hill Air Force Base that are set to be hosting the F-35 starting this fall. It's a program, however, that has been marred by some delays and some cost overruns, as you know. As the Department of Defense looks at acquiring other new weapons systems and equipment to make sure that we maintain our technological advantage over our adversaries, I think it's important not only to work time and cost efficiencies and acquisition into the equation for such programs, but also to integrate that with logistics and maintenance processes that are absolutely essential to make sure that we get our money's worth. And of course, with a program like the F-35, the biggest single expense through the life cycle isn't just acquiring it, it's also maintaining it and making sure that we get our money's worth out of it. Given that the Department of Defense has been reforming the acquisitions process in various ways for decades, what would you do differently not only to improve that process, but to make sure that acquisitions and development and logistics are all aligned in a way that increases the life cycle and increases the efficiency and utility of these various weapon systems?
Well, thank you, Senator. It is exactly as you say. The lion's share of the cost of any weapon system is not in buying it, but in having it, which is why, to get to the F-35 example that you cite, the long-standing battle to control cost in the Joint Strike Fighter program, which I've been part of but is still ongoing and has to go on as long as that program is in existence. It's not perfect yet. It's a long way from that. Has to extend into the sustainment phase of the aircraft. We've worked on cost control and development. We've worked on cost control in the production of the aircraft, and we need to work on cost control in sustainment as well, exactly as you say.
Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate your thought on that, especially because your experience gives you a real strong ability to appreciate the nuances involved there. General John Kelly, the commander of SOUTHCOM, called last year's border crisis an existential threat to the United States. Do you think that our inability to adequately enforce security at our borders does present a security threat to the United States, including a security threat that could involve the possibility of terrorists entering into our country without our knowledge?
I think control of our borders is an important part of national security, yes.
And so that's something that you would continue to watch out for if confirmed to this position?
Absolutely.
It was reported on February 2nd, so just a few days ago, that Iran successfully placed another satellite into orbit using a two-stage rocket. Do you think the continued development of Iranian ballistic missile technology presents a threat to the United States, and if so, what do you think we ought to do about it?
I do. I think it's a threat not only to the United States but friends and allies in the region, and it's just one of the things that Iran is doing that is dangerous. With respect to ballistic missiles that could threaten the United States, I think that's one of the reasons why we need to keep our missile defenses and especially our ICBM defenses current, capable, and large enough in size to deal with both the prospective Iranian threat and the also very real North Korean ICBM threat.
Thank you. As has been noted, in several capacities that you've had within the Department of Defense, including most recently as the Deputy Secretary, you've had to confront the issue of sequestration. Now, many of us, including myself, did not want sequestration to hit. I voted against the Budget Control Act in part because I didn't think that we ought to be putting this burden disproportionately on the Department of Defense as we were. None of us wanted the super committee to not come up with a solution even after that happened, and many of us hoped that it wouldn't come to that, and of course it did. But one of the lessons that I think we learned from 2 years ago is that while it's good to hope for the best, we also have to prepare for the worst. What can you do to make sure that we're not caught flat-footed and that we're ready for anything that we have to confront on that issue?
Well, we need to continue to adapt our plans to the resources we're given. My own view is that we have made adaptations over the last few years to our strategy to accommodate the budget squeeze that are getting to the limits of what it is safe to do. And that's why I really want to see an end to sequester. We need to do more to spend the defense dollar better, and I'm all for that as well. But it's also basically, it's the truth that we are getting to the point where we have bent the strategy, as the phrase goes, and I don't think it's safe to keep bending it.
Thank you. I see my time's expired. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Kaine.